one of the things that you've been talking about, and you have a lot of data and science to back this up. It is somewhat contrary to the modern mantra of what coaches are seeing and reading. Is you're saying that there is more of a lateral pressure or component shift in the swing than there is rotational. So if you can explain that, because in today's world, if you say that to a 20-something assistant pro who wants to get into coaching and teaching, and they're reading and absorbing as much as they can, they're going to look at you and say you're crazy.
Yes. Hopefully not too much.
Yeah. But hopefully they're willing to they're open enough that they want to learn enough to get better, that they want to hear what you have to say. But for those who are, as we talked in the pre-show, many young anybody today is short on time. Time is a very valuable resource. So they're trying to run tournaments, answer phones, make tee times, and still increase their teaching knowledge. So they're probably learning a lot of what they're learning on coaching through either YouTube or social media. And as we talked about, a lot of that is revolving, to use a word that goes with it, is that the swing has gone into more rotary forces as opposed to lateral and or vertical. And what you're saying is no, that there is the lateral component is more important than the horizontal. And I have the terminology incorrect. I'll let you.
No problem. So this my phone, if the that circle actually is great. So that if I rotate on this plane, that's frontal plane torque, and if I rotate on this plane, that's horizontal plane torque. The other torque would be from the side. That's sagittal. We can go there if you want to. That's a little more difficult to conceptualize. But if you, I think a couple of things happen when you're looking at a golfer and face on. You're looking at them. They're facing you. Then they turn to the side, and then they turn to the side. So that obviously looks like a turn, and it is a turn. One of my favorite people in Europe, Pete Cowan, has had a saying for many years. Pete's probably coached more tour players almost in the world than anybody. He called it for years a spiral staircase. So the fastest way to get from a bottom floor to a second floor is a spiral staircase. So as you go up, as you rotate to the right, you go up. As you rotate to the left, you come down. So that, now I understand, is a combination of frontal plane torque with horizontal plane torque. Everybody sees this one, and we don't really pay attention. We see that, but we don't know what we're looking at. Mike Malaska had a great term that I like. He said the golf swing's invisible. So what you think you're seeing is not what you're seeing, and when you think you're seeing it, it's not when you're seeing it. And so that's where the tricky part comes. And also for most golfers, golf pros, they are looking at, we get obsessed by the shiny object, which is the golf club. So we're looking at where the golf club goes to, and it's obviously on an incline going behind us because we're tilted forwards to begin with. But if people would research frontal plane torque to move that, if I have a center there and I push this way and push that way, that's what I'm trying to do in the golf swing. So I'm pushing with my left foot in the backswing. That moves me to the right. My central nervous system kicks in and it says, I don't want to fall to the right. So now my right foot kicks in and that starts to tilt me back to the left. Because we're bent forwards and our foot works a bit this way, that gives us the horizontal plane torque. We're shifting, even though I may feel linear towards you, my front of my foot's working, the back of my foot's working. So I'm getting horizontal plane torque, even though my feeling may be completely linear. Like if I'm turned towards you, I'm going this way. I may feel that, but I'm also going to get rotation as well. And so that's why I tell people, like if you do frontal plane or, this one, vertical plane, you will get the horizontal plane.
And as we talked, I think where a lot of people get misunderstanding of this concept is as the hips and the shoulders are in a tilted plane, that they do move parallel, but in relationship to the ground, as they're tilted, one side, the trail side will look like it raises higher, and the lead side will look like it goes down.
Yes.
So where I go down the driving range and you look at some of the 15 to 20 handicappers that might hear this, they're going to shift their hips completely laterally and have no raising of one side and lowering of the other, and then opposite coming through. And they're just going to think, well, Jon said I need to slide more in my swing. And I that's not what you're saying at all.
No, and so that's where speed comes in and when the sliding takes place. So the other thing we know is that the best players, they produce more energy prior to the start, prior to you seeing them move. They've pushed incredibly hard with the left foot to move them to the right. So the energy between start back and shaft parallel, first shaft parallel, is immensely more in a high level player. Now, they will tell you, or it looks, when you're looking at a golf swing, it looks very, very smooth, or it looks rhythmical. And so a golfer will say when they hit a bad one, I got too quick, which is again sending the normal person down a bad path. Because I think what they're feeling is they were slow and then they kept speeding up, or they didn't slow down appropriately as they went back. And then the backswing was slower than it needed to be. The brain then said, I need this much speed to get the ball to go this far. And they overspeed in the start of the downswing. So it feels like on a wobble, because we know that where you're holding it again is not where the mass is. So now the mass is somewhere back there of the club. You're applying force to the grip and it doesn't want to move because it's out of balance with you, essentially. So it feels out of balance. It feels quick. You hit a crappy shot and your friend said, you got quick on that one. Say, I'm not going to do that again. I'll get
so they
slow.
slow down.
I go slower here. And so what I do with students when they come in, they go, I said, what happens when you hit a bad shot? I get quick on it. I said, you've never been quick in your life. Like, no disrespect. You've never been fast. So I said, next time somebody says that, so I go through the whole spiel. And I said, next time somebody says you get quick, swing back faster and then swing through and ask them what it looked like. And they'll go, that looks great. Because we're seeing the difference between the backswing and downswing. That's what the golfer sees. And that's where I think we get screwed up. So again, the well-intended information is you got quick. So the poor golfer then slows down and then they're really piling on the speed at the top of the swing. And a tour player, like the orange whip is a great tool. Jimmy Hackett, that invented it, was caddying for a guy I used to coach. And he said he just realized that all these tour players look so smooth in transition. They were very quick here, and then they slowed the club down in the backswing, which is like, what? You slowing down in the backswing? You have to slow down to make it transition, and then they can then apply more force in the downswing. It looks very blended.
Yes.
And that's key. So Jon Novosel is a good friend of mine. John has a tour tempo information, so phenomenal information. We know that the ratio of speed for a good player is 3 parts to 1 part full swing. So 0.75 of a second, 0.25 of a second for the downswing. We know the swing takes about a second from the time you take it back to impact. The longer hitters are faster than that, but it's pretty darn close. So that was great, but I didn't know how to get to those numbers. And then I met Bob Grober, Dr. Bob Grober, and he's talking about force over time. So if I push my hand back with that amount of force and I push it down with twice the amount of force, I get the 3-to-1 ratio. And as soon as he told me that, I'm like, that's so simple. It's brilliant. And it's based on math. Like he is, I do not want to have a math discussion with him. It would be over very early. And what he said was, too, the short game is, we know it's a 2-to-1 ratio of time. And so he said, if you apply the same force back and the same force down, you get 2-to-1. And so that was like, oh my gosh. Like I was with him at TPI with Dave and Greg. And Dave said, hey, Bob Grober's coming in tomorrow. Like he's interesting guy. You should come listen. And this was just a conversation with Dave, Greg, and myself. So Bob starts off. Greg asked him a question about, Greg was asking why the long drive guys can deadlift at least 300 pounds. Like why do they have to do that to be able to swing as fast as they do? And Bob just goes into this and says, well, because the club weighs a pound, they're swinging at this speed, the radius of the arm, they have to have 300 pounds of power to be able to pull back on that club to slow it. And I was like, okay. So now I started listening more, and then we talked about tour tempo stuff. I was like, yeah, I know that. And then he said, well, to get that, you have to apply force in this way. And I was like, hold on, say that again, because that's just let me now understand why those things that we see happen. Like seeing it happens one thing. I need to know what goes into the recipe to make the cake. So force over time is phenomenal.
Would the The one that comes to mind, the clear image of somebody who sets into that trail side or
Mhm.
that has that lateral component to before anything else in the swing happens is Henrik Stenson.
Absolutely,
Would
yeah.
he be the prototype move of what you're describing?
Yes, I mean, obviously the freak would be Kyle Berkshire, but
Mm-hmm.
Stenson, yes, and Stenson's a Pete Cowan guy.
Yes.
So spiral staircase, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so he would be one where it's very obvious where he looks like he does that, and like Kyle Berkshire, phenomenal. I wish I could hit like Kyle Berkshire, but people would say, well, he's never going to play on tour. Henrik Stenson won a major, and he's won. Henrik Stenson was not a great putter, and looks phenomenal ball striker.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the validation a lot of time for people. Well, does it work on tour? Well, yes, it does, and we know
How
that every player is doing that. Henrik's is more pronounced; you can see it, but every player that plays, we know pushes with the lead foot before they move to the trail side.
we had